I'd like to call the January 19th, 2022 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 6:30. Mr. Pinio, do we have need for a non-public session?
Good evening, Madam Chairperson. We do under RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2, compensation, promotion, or dismissal of public employee.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, minutes. We have about 4 or 5 of them. The first one is December 1st. Does anybody have any changes? I do. On page 10, the last sentence, the amount should be $196,000 instead of $160,000. That's the only one I have on those minutes. Does anybody else have any changes or corrections? Seeing and hearing none, can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the next one is December 15th. Does anybody have any corrections or changes? I do on page 13, and I believe this is what should happen. We're going under committee reports, and you see Chairman Murray attended the chamber meeting, Wolfeboro Waters, and then it has Public Safety Building Committee meeting. Luke is not in here. I believe Luke was the one who said he was at the Public Safety Building Committee meeting, so I'd like it removed from my list and put Luke in that under Luke's name. Does anybody else have any other corrections, changes? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, December 28th minutes. Does anybody have any changes or corrections? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'd like to table the January 5th meeting. There were some confusion in the voting, and votes got put under the wrong warrant article. I have given those to Amy. She's in the process of getting them straightened out. I think she did a fantastic job doing this remotely with all the warrant articles we had to go over. So I'd like to make a motion to table the January 5th.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're moving on here. We have no public hearings, and the next item on the agenda is that we have public input, 3 minutes per person, not to exceed 15 minutes. Do I have anybody in the audience who'd like to give us public input at this time? Seeing, hearing none, we'll move on to the bulk vote. And I'll read the weekly manifest. January 1st, 2022, $35,000, and it was booked to 2022. January 7th, 2022, $175,296.03. That was booked to 2021. Another January 7th, 2022, it was for $421,335.73, and that was booked to 2022. January 14th, $158,478.37. That was booked 2021. And another one on January 14th was $1,609,263.46. That was booked for 2022, and the reason it was so large is there was a payment to the school district. We have some tax abatements, to intent to cut. In 2022, the standard mileage reimbursement will be 58.5 cents per mile. And we have handed out to us a list of holidays for next year, and that will also be approved. And I would also like to read the list of people who gave to the last night Wolfeboro activities. This is a donation, and we're going to accept it. The full amount was $3,486, and from Black's Print, Black's Paper Store should be $750. Brewster Academy, $100. The Yum Yum Shop, $200. Kevin Lawless, Edward Jones, $500. Hunter Shop and Stay, $500. Leona McDonald Roberts, $500. AV Insurance, $500. $300 from Windrifter Resort, and $135 in cash that we got in the event. So can I have a motion to accept the bulk vote?
So moved.
Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item on our agenda is boards, committees, and appointment, and we have a resignation from the Wolfeboro Energy Committee, and it's James Knupp. He is giving us notice that he's going to resign. Can I have a motion to accept his resignation?
Move to regretfully accept James Knupp's resignation as an alternative member of the Wolfeboro Energy Committee for the term to expire March of 2023.
Do I have a second?
A mention, just a quick
Okay.
mention, is James was instrumental in helping to get the EV chargers installed in town.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation of retirement gift to Cynthia Smith as Director of the Wolfeboro Public Library. If you'll come on up. At your going away, I have to do this. At your going away party, I read an accommodation, and I'd like to read it again tonight so the people here can hear it. Whereas Cynthia Scott has served the town of Wolfeboro as director of the Wolfeboro Public Library for 20 years, and whereas, as director, Cynthia Scott has completely evaluated, upgraded, and diversified the entire collection at the Wolfeboro Town Library, and whereas Cynthia Scott has established and expanded programs that are provided for public access to technology, resulting in a smooth and successful transition, therefore bringing our residents into the digital age. And whereas Cynthia Scott leaves us with a legacy of her success, participation, and support in the renovation and expansion of the Wolfeboro Public Library, now, therefore, we, the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen, do hereby accommodate you for your 20 years of service and wish you many years of health and happiness, and extend our sincere congratulations on your future retirement. And here's a chair that we hope you will sit in and remember us here at Wolfeboro. So if the board can get up, do you want to take a picture of the board giving it to you? Somebody want to help? Help me get out of here. Okay, we will move on, and the next item is to introduce Amanda King, the new director of the Wolfeboro Public Library, and I'm going to turn that over to Jim.
Thank you. So we just celebrated the retirement of Cindy Scott, our librarian. Thank you for your years of service, Cindy. Library's great. And it appears she's handed it off in good fashion to a new librarian who's joining us from Texas. Her name is Amanda King, and I'd like to have Amanda come up and introduce herself to the board and the community. Amanda.
Good evening. I think you saw me earlier here filming. My name is Amanda King, and I come from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I didn't come from Dallas, though, so don't worry, I'm not from the big city. I came from Burleson, Texas, which is south of Fort Worth, and I worked in a library called Kennedale, Texas, which had a population of about 8,000. So I'm comfortable with smaller communities, and I've worked in resort communities as well. So I'm really excited to be here in Wolfeboro, and my family is getting used to all the snow and everything ready. So we're just really excited to be here.
Thank you. All righty, next item on the agenda is a Joint Loft Safety Committee update and funds request. Jim, you want to take this?
Yeah, so Joint Loss Committee is actually a group of employees that's split between management and staff. They meet on a monthly basis to review incidents which have occurred and look at if there's any prevention measures that can be taken. It's really a good forum because it takes some of the pressure off of the employees which work within a specific department to call out problems within the building or the working conditions. You know, some of the things that have been brought to our attention through the Joint Loss Management Committee as a result of Brian's concern with what's going on at solid waste. We were able to have that building evaluated. They're actually out inspecting all buildings at this time. And what they're doing is they're coming back with recommendations of what they should do to bring the building into a better working condition for the employees. And it's not doing it in a heavy-handed manner like a codes inspection or anything. It's coming in from a common sense approach from the staff and saying, here's some of the shortcomings. Additionally, one of the recommendations that's come forward, as you're well aware, a few years ago, we had a very serious accident with one of our employees. Not too awfully long ago, we had another very close call with an employee not being able to hear vehicular traffic. So we actually, as a result of Joint Loss coming forward with the recommendation, we actually secured helmets with communications devices in them for the Department of Public Works so that we can help to alleviate any potential accidents in the future. You know, it buys just a little bit of time. So what they've done is, as a result of holding all their meetings, we're actually recognizing discounts in our various property liability insurances. So our property liability is a 2.5% discount on contributions, a 2.5% discount on contributions to workers' comp, prorated for 3 months for workers' compensation is $776. Property liability would be $1,242. This will provide a yearly savings to the taxpayer of $8,704. And what the committee would like in return, they actually usually meet over their lunch hour. And I think it's prudent that we provide them a lunch.
Absolutely.
So they're looking for $600. I can sit here and tell you that I can absolutely make that happen. I just want the board to be aware. The good work that this group is doing, and it's exciting to see people engaging at that level and communicating and trying to help make a better workplace for themselves and their coworkers.
You know, I would like us to take it out of the Board of Selectmen's miscellaneous fund. I think it shows the board's support of the work that they're doing. And so I'll make that motion. I'll make the motion that the Board of Selectmen take $600 out of their miscellaneous account to provide lunches for the Joint Loss Committee.
Second.
Second. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. And Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, is it currently 10 employees that are on that? 5 management, 5 labor. So we have 10 employees who are actively participating, which a lot of communities don't have, so we're very fortunate.
Excellent. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Russ Pond North Inlet hydrology evaluation. Do we have somebody here?
Yes, I'm Bob Hartzell from Comprehensive Environmental on behalf of the town Department of Planning and Development. And if it's possible, I'd like to be able to share my screen for.
Okay, that would be great.
All right, let's see if that works.
There he is.
All right, so let me know if you're able to see those slides and I'll start. Are you able to see the slides?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. So I'm going to just give a quick overview of this investigation we did for the primary tributary to Russ Pond, which is known as the North Inlet tributary. So just as way of backdrop, there's been previous study of this tributary, mostly going back to the period between 2007 and 2010. This tributary was the source of a pretty significant deposition of sediment in the northern portion of the pond and loss of depth to the point where the homes on that end of the lake, the pond rather, had really some impairments with their ability to get boats to their docks and just, depths for swimming and just a general filling in. So there was some initial work done by the state, the Department of Environmental Services, and by geosyntech consultants where I was previously employed. And there were a couple of assumptions. One was that there had been some development in that portion of the watershed that might have contributed to, it extends from its headwaters near the high school middle section there towards Cross Road, and then eventually reaching Russ Pond at its northern tip. So we went out and looked at the stream channel itself, all the way from the headwaters down to where it meets the lake. And we were looking for signs of active erosion, anything like a beaver dam or down trees that might alter flow. And also, we're looking for opportunities to reduce sediment loading, including investigation of things that had been built back in 2010. So there was a stream stabilization project that was done on a property in the vicinity of Cross Road. And also the culvert where the stream crosses under Cross Road was rebuilt, and there was a sediment basin constructed that allows the town to go in and regularly remove accumulated sediment. So we wanted to see if those are functioning well or if anything else could be done in those areas. So we broke up our investigation to really 8 areas where we found some focused recommendations that I'll summarize. I won't go through all these photos. I just want to give you a sense that if anyone does have questions about a particular area, we can go back and I can answer questions in more detail about specific spots. So in summary, we went up and down the watershed, and we have recommendations that were ranked in terms of priority, low, medium, and high. And those recommendations are generally in the categories of infrastructure improvements, public education and outreach regarding vegetative stream buffers and the benefits they have, continued maintenance on the part of the town DPW, and then continued beaver management, because we do have beaver dams back in 2 spots on the downstream end of the tributary. And then finally, taking some initial steps towards evaluating the possibility of dredging and removing the sediments that are in the northern part of the pond. So to summarize quickly, the structural improvements, we have 3 major recommendations: construction of several more sediment traps, some drainage channel improvements, and installation of flow-through pipes in the 2 beaver dams. Those would total up to an estimated cost of $34,500. And we did find that in this investigation, there are no places where sediment is now discharging or eroding at an abnormally high rate. You have conditions that are pretty consistent with other watersheds of its type in this part of New Hampshire. So that's good news. It was not the case before. In terms of maintenance, the photo on the top, you can see an aerial view of, in the right-hand portion of it here is where that new culvert and the sediment trap were constructed. So continuing to do maintenance there, it seems to be working really well. It's a critical spot in the flow path where sediment can work down the watershed and then be collected before it makes its way down to the lake. So it's functioning as it's intended, and the DPW is doing a good job of staying on top of the sediment and removing it. There were several spots along the stream corridor where there is active, apparently clearing and some deposition of fill material along the stream corridor. So continued education, it's just an ongoing thing that probably should be done to help rebuild and replant in some of those areas, and making sure that folks know the benefits that come from that. And then finally, looking into the feasibility of dredging. We'd want to get in there and update the sediment accumulation estimates that were developed by the state back in 2007 to get an accurate sense of volume and how much it would cost to remove that volume of sediment. And you can see in the photo there on the right, that actually goes back to, I believe, 2007 during a dry spell. So you can actually really see that sediment delta in the lake and how it impacts the nearby docks. In order to do dredging, you need to get sediment sampling done to figure out the chemistry of that sediment, and that really dictates where you'd be able to dispose of and or beneficially reuse the sediment that's dredged. And then we'd also need to look at logistical considerations for dredging. So where would you put equipment in? Where would you be able to de-water in the nearshore area? Locations where you might possibly dispose of and reuse that sediment in town to make it more less expensive. And then finally, once all that's done, we use that information to get a dredging and sediment disposal cost. So to take those initial steps to do the feasibility study, that would cost about $15,000. So to sum it all up, what we are recommending is that the town should at least consider a funding option to combine all of the project elements that I just described for funding through a New Hampshire DES Section 319 grant. So by combining all of those project elements, it actually would make a grant more competitive. So for example, if you were to only go after funding to do dredging, they would want to actually see that you would do things like public education and outreach and structural improvements to prevent or decrease the sediment load on an ongoing basis. So by packaging up all these different project elements, it actually makes it a fuller project and more desirable to and more likely to get a grant. So those three elements tally up to $52,000, and there is a 40% local match required from that grant type. So that would mean a $20,800 local match if it was a match in cash in order to get the balance for the total project cost. It is possible to provide the required match in non-cash in-kind services, so labor from the DPW or equipment usage and things of that nature, but it would increase the total project. So if you were to get $52,000 in cash from the grant, you would have to provide an additional $34,000 in in-kind services. So that's just the way the math works. So the easiest way to do it, the most direct way, is to provide, $20,800 in cash to get the money you need to do all the entire project. So that's the quick summary. I'm happy to take any questions.
Do any board members have any questions? If I read from what you're saying is that it seems like we have, with what we have done in the past, really stopped the sediment coming into this area?
It seems like it's done quite a good job, yes. And, I think there might have been some misconception as to the degree of loading coming from the watershed as a whole. I personally, I've worked on this particular watershed. I was part of the projects going back, in the vintage of 2010. And I really do think that the release of either one or more beaver dams probably was a primary source of a big slug of sediment. Certainly, the work that's happened in the past few years, and in particular, the improvements at Cross Road and the culvert there, that's made things a lot better in terms of the rate of sediment that works its way down and could ever even begin to build up behind a beaver dam. So that's a long way of saying yes to your question, I guess.
So in essence, you're saying probably one of the most important things for us to do would be to put, what, I guess it was a pipe under the beaver dam so those dams wouldn't wash out? If you just
Yeah,
took
that's
one
right.
major thing you could do?
That's correct, yeah. By putting a flow-through pipe, you're essentially taking the hydraulic pressure off of that structure so that even when you get a peak flow after a big storm, you're allowing enough water to pass through so that the likelihood of catastrophic failure or just a release, a breakdown of that dam is just much less likely.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns? Jim?
I have one question. I just want to throw this out to you, Bob. You've mentioned the work done at Crossroad. Could that be considered as in-kind work or not?
Unfortunately, no. The in-kind work, the in-kind match has to be during the active period of the contract, or the grant period. So because that was constructed earlier, it wouldn't count towards a new grant if it was awarded. But you could look at the work that the DPW is doing on an ongoing basis, not just at Cross Road, but at other structures in the watershed as part of maintenance that could be considered as match.
Worth a try. Thank you.
I have one last question. How often does DES give a permit to dredge?
That's a good question. It's not something that gets permitted very often, only because there just aren't that many dredging projects because it's fairly costly. But I'm actually working on a small scale dredging project right now for a project in Manchester that is very likely to be approved. It's not really, it's pretty straightforward. And I think what you've got going for you here is that DES has been really a partner in this project, and since 2007 or even before, the folks at DES really understand what's going on here, and they've sort of set the conditions where, back in 2010, they said, we understand that this ultimately there's sediment in this pond in the northern area that probably needs to come out, but we want to make sure before you do that and before there's any public funding going towards it or anything like that, that you stop the sources, in the watershed so that we don't have to do this again in 5 or 10 years. And I think what the town's done here is create a body of evidence and, put your own cash on the line here and had additional investigations done, and you've built structures to improve the sediment loading condition. So now we've got, sort of what DES has asked for in terms of making this watershed behave like a typical watershed, not one where sediment is coming into the lake at an accelerated rate. So now it becomes a fair question to begin looking at dredging as an option. Okay,
thank you. Does anybody else have any question? And I guess, Jim, we're just going to take this report back, read it, and then get back to them?
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for giving us this report. We'll have some conversations around it, and we'll get back to you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the permission to use town land. Peter Ford. Jim, do you want to introduce this, or do we just let
Mr. Ford has approached the town planner with a plan where he would like to work with the town to develop a plan going forward where we have a in-ground propane tank in Cape Park. We would also look at the possibility of a area to put trash from the restaurants in an enclosed dumpster type of facility, and also some outdoor seating along his building. I believe Mr. Ford is here to be able to speak on his behalf.
Thank you for your time. Just to give you a little background, about a year ago, I was involved in the purchase of the Latchaw Building and the Joe Green's Restaurant with a partner, Tom Waxsmith, who owns several businesses in town. And our purpose of purchasing it is to both improve the physical appearance of the building from the street side, but even more importantly, the dock side of the building. Also to reposition the building as the Wolfeboro Eatery, which will ultimately have 3 different restaurants housed in the property. For the past year, which you've probably noticed, we have rebuilt the 2 rear decks. We've expanded the size of them and completely rebuilt them. And Marker 21, a new restaurant, will be opening on the 2nd and 3rd floor. So the second phase, and of course we painted the building. The second phase of the project is to take the first floor and turn it into 2 distinct restaurants. One restaurant will be a fast casual restaurant on the water with an outside deck. And then on the street side will be more of a grab-and-go handheld, but there'll be a fast pizza oven, and we'll be selling grab-and-go food, for prepared grab-and-go food to order for both summer people that come in from the town docks and just want to get some food and not wait a long time in a restaurant, and also for workforce people. There's been a big demand from talking with a lot of people in town that work there. They've only got 30, 45 minutes to eat lunch, and they just don't have the time or even the money to go to a restaurant or to walk to a sub shop. So it's going to be geared towards that type of a demographic. So in developing the restaurant, we realized, even just for Marker 21 upstairs, there was some inadequacies due to the fact that the building has a 0 lot line. And when we started out with the building, if you remember from Joe Green's, they had approximately 12 to 15 garbage cans in the back that were on the town docks. And we just didn't feel like that was an acceptable solution to the trash, especially given the fact that there's going to be more restaurants there. And then the second issue is with the gas. There are 4 right now 100-gallon gas tanks in the back, but due to the gas use of a restaurant, just Marker 21 with the seating capacity, those tanks will probably have to be refilled at least every other day, if not every day. And then in doing the site plan development for 2 new restaurants, again, we ran into a problem with where do we put gas tanks? There's just no other place. So in developing, working with some developers of restaurants and also Tom Zotti and local codes people, we have the proposal to take a 1,000-pound gas tank and put it in Cape Park, underground. It will supply all the gas for both restaurants, and it will not only be needed to probably be refilled once a week. So that's the one part of the proposal. And the second is to construct a building where, which you can see on the plan. Does anyone need a hard copy?
We got it in our packet.
Have it.
Okay, good. I also have a preliminary floor plan of the restaurants, if anyone's interested. But the other problem, of course, is the trash. There's just no place to put the trash there. We investigated a couple of different options, and we feel like the best option would be to put a contained dumpster area inside of an attractive building that we will provide, that both the 3 restaurants in our building and also the other restaurant next door to us can also use, because they have the same problem that we have. There's just garbage everywhere. So that's the second part of the proposal that involves the town land. And then the third part is, I think most people will agree that there is just a shortage of outdoor seating in Wolfeboro in general. And for the restaurant that's facing Main Street, it's very important because of our concept that we have some place for people to go to eat their food. And there's really no place in town for that. There's a couple of picnic tables in Cape Park. So we're proposing that the 3 parking spaces, which are difficult to use on the best day, will be vacated, and we'll move the sidewalk out to the edge of the street, and we'll use that space for approximately 30 to 40 outdoor seating seats for the restaurant. And this is, in my mind, very consistent with the work that the Town Dock Committee is doing. By moving the sidewalk and having the flow from the town docks to the perimeter of the building, and then to the crosswalk, which the site plan shows, and then across the street, most likely to the bubble. And also, there has been a lot of thought about reducing the parking in that area, especially given the fact that there is the boat launch here. And, I spent a lot of time at the building over the summer, and it's just extremely difficult for people to park in those parking spaces and have people trying to load and unload their boats. So we're asking the town to give us permission to move the sidewalk out to the perimeter of where the parking spaces are and allow us to put in outdoor seating.
Board members, anybody have any comments?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, okay. I'll start this way and run that way. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, Dave?
Well, I don't have any issue with the underground propane tank. I do have an issue with this garbage container. We're trying to beautify this area through the dock committee and so forth, and we've got a pretty good handle on the docks themselves. But to drive into this area and look at that trash building, if you will, blocking the gazebo, I don't care for that. That's my opinion. I don't have an issue, and I think we've talked in the past about eliminating the parking spaces on the exit out of the dockside area. I don't have an issue with that one. The big issue I have is with the garbage. I know it's a problem, always has been. Will probably continue to be. And I can understand, why you wouldn't want to move it closer to this deck area, because they sit out there to eat. And that would be right up against the dumpsters. But to me, that's where it should go. I don't like the blocking up of the gazebo. Plus, we lose probably 3 parking spaces there in particular. But that's my initial comments from what I saw of the plan.
Luke?
Should I
Let us,
provide any feedback, or would just?
why don't you
Let's just
hear
see if he
us,
has
and then,
similar issues.
yeah, and then you'll know which
Okay.
one we're all fixated on.
All
Okay,
right.
Luke?
I agree with Dave on a lot of the things. I think the trash thing is a big problem down there, and Dave Ford and I were down there, last week, and I think Dave, you were out last summer for a health thing with the other restaurant. So, something needs to be done there, and it may be, I don't know, because there's that van spot where that van parks. If there could be some way to, not right near the gazebo. I fully agree with the propane. I think that's a no-brainer. It'd be underground, or just be a fill station on top of it. That area is already getting squeezed, and it's the same with the seating. We were talking about eliminating the parking spots on the other side, but ultimately it doesn't really matter which side, because the angle for the trucks backing up boats, as long as you get rid of one side, and this, I can see why this makes sense and would be helpful and beneficial to you. So I think that works too. Ultimately you have dockside down there too, dealing with the trash issue. So I think something needs to be done and identified. And, but even if there is a corral and it's moved closer to the, Dave Ford actually and me talked about, if you had trash on one side of it, and then maybe some storage on the back side of it, that the people in Cape Park that use the band and stuff like that could store stuff in it, but it would have to be taken out every day, otherwise it would stink. But I think the trash is going to be an issue. It needs to be dealt with down there.
So that's exactly what I was going to say. When I worked at the carpenter school, we had a dumpster that was emptied regularly, and it was behind the building. And it leaked all over the parking lot. And on a 90-degree day, a dumpster stinks. And you're going to have 2 dumpsters full, and you're going to have 100 people on the grass watching a band play, and it's going to be horrible. It's going to stink. That's one thing. So I don't know where you put it down in that area where it's not going to be a foul smell during 90-degree summer days. That's a problem. The only problem I have with your seating on your side is, what about Avery? What if they want the same thing? Who do we give it to? Do we give it to you? Do we give it to them? I think that a good thing would be if you joined or just came in, visited the ad hoc doc, the parking lot committee, the Docks parking lot committee, or came to the meetings and be part of this whole conversation. Because if we say, okay, you can have a tank, you can have the whole sidewalk and the parking spots, you can put your dumpster there, the other businesses there all have the same issues and the same problems. And I think we have to decide who gets what, when, and where, and how.
I'm going to be in a different place. I'm not interested in giving any of the taxpayers' land away and the citizens' land. We have a small space down there. It is a prime location for our community. If he wants to put his shed, he can get rid of his back deck. I asked for some beginning parts of the survey, which I don't think anything should happen until we get this mess of the survey. And I was surprised that there are areas that we thought building zone that did not. And I got that late today. But already on this building, it looks like we've already given at least 3 boundary line adjustments in order for them to do, and 1 for the downtown grill. This is the town land, and I don't think we should be giving public land to private businesses.
Yeah, I would say you...
I'm not done yet. You had your chance. And so I'm against any of that. I'm fine with putting the propane tank in there if the dock committee is not going to try to use any of that for any kind of drainage. The garbage, absolutely not. Here we are. We have church services. That is one of the most beautiful spots. We are putting it on our annual report because it's so significant to the community. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to preserve the land that we have down there in this small area. I think it was you, Brian, who talked about motorcycle parking on that side. I'd prefer to see the motorcycle parking than producing seating for a private business who bought a building that didn't have the land. And also, they're looking at coming out. We gave them permission on this one corner of the building, and I don't have a scale, they want to come out further from that. I'm just not in favor of giving away public land. If we did anything like this, you'd have to hold a public hearing. I really believe we need to hold on to our public land. I think we're having trouble with people just kind of trying to take over some of our public land, and I don't think anything should happen. In fact, I would like even the design of this area to stop until we get this stuff straightened out. Yep. And I could not print it. I had to get Amy to print this for me late today, and I'll pass it around. But land that we thought was somebody else's is ours. And we started to talk about designing something that we need to know the boundaries. So I think nothing should happen. Brad, do you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. I'm on the same page as you are, Linda, here. I'm okay with a propane tank. That's going to be a buried tank in the ground. That makes sense there. But the trash location there, we talked about blocking off the front of the gazebo. We're going to keep in mind, too, that we have a vendor down there that works, would end up setting up right beside that. That's definitely going to hurt his business there also. Regarding the sidewalk relocation on the exit road, we talked about the access with boats and trailers going out through there being tight. I've kind of, in my thought, I had kind of a vision, I think I'd mentioned before, of taking out that first space as you're going out on the left, on the back side of, along the back of the Avery block side, to open up that bottleneck right there, because it gets a little bit wider as you go out, and keep those 3 spaces on the side of the Latchaw building. As we all know, parking is a premium in this town. I would hate to lose, the spaces along, the right side going out and the spaces down by the gazebo. And I'm on the same page as you are, Linda. This is our town property here. It's, we're really working to beautify this, and I don't see that the trash being located down there would go toward that effect at all. So I would be reluctant to give permission for that.
Luke?
The other thing too is maybe working with Dockside Restaurant to, I mean, they have a trash facility over there in the white fence. I know it's not very big, but, you have them, I mean, you have the Downtown Market Grill, and they're storing their grease dumpster and trash right underneath their staircase. So it's definitely, I mean, it's definitely an issue, and I agree what you're saying, Linda, giving up town property, but obviously need to hold a public hearing regardless for anything like that. I think we do need to figure out in that dock committee what, I mean, trash is going to be an issue for all those restaurants, but I know it's up to the individuals, but it is going to be a problem. Yeah.
Do you, how did you get rid of trash this summer?
Well, the location, so I guess I'll just kind of summarize and address the issues, and I think if I can just summarize the location of the gas, you guys are in agreement, so that seems like it's okay to put that in there, and I appreciate that because it does solve a big problem, especially mainly because the location of the gas tanks is a very technical thing. It's not like you can put it here or could you put it there. There's very specific places that you can put gas tanks based upon the building and electrical things, so that really helps us, so thank you very much for that. And the trash, the location of the trash that's where we put it in this drawing. We've kind of looked all around that area to see where can we put this. This was the preliminary spot. It could be moved anywhere in that side. It could be moved closer to the building. That wouldn't be a problem. We did look at the trash dumpster over by Dockside Restaurant, and I mean, they have one there. It's at the town docks. It doesn't smell. It's right behind their restaurant and right next to the ice cream stand. So if you maintain the dumpster and you empty it on a regular basis, you can certainly prevent any odors from being a problem in the downtown town docks or your business. So we did look at that, and if that was made a little bit larger, then that could be a solution to this. But really, what we're looking at here is some way of the lesser of two evils. I mean, if you go to any restaurant and you look behind the curtain, behind the restaurant, there are just some things that are not attractive. You have to have gas, you have to have trash, you have food coming in and out. It's just the nature of the business. Unfortunately here, for our restaurant and the Downtown Grill, and even to some extent with the Avery building, the back of our building is the town docks. So we're working very hard to minimize and even to beautify the back of the restaurant, but somehow you have to also address the issues that you can function. So we felt like this is the lesser of two evils, putting a central dumpster for all the different restaurants here, at least the 3 restaurants that are proposed in existence, and that's a better solution. It's not an ideal solution, but it's a better solution than having 20 individual garbage cans that everybody can see that are spilling over, that are getting knocked over. That's a much less desirable solution. So if it's possible to look at expanding the size of the dockside one, we're all in favor of that. But the worst case scenario in my mind is just having a whole mess of garbage cans out there, which is what Joe Green's had for years.
All right.
And it stunk. The whole town dock stunk.
Did you did you have to get rid of garbage this summer?
The restaurant did not open.
It did not open. What's, just enlighten me, what's the cost of emptying 2 dumpsters a day? You said you would empty them daily.
It's inconsequential.
Inconsequential. Because we do have a company in town, Wakefield Disposal. They may come twice a day. And if you put out regular garbage cans, they may come and empty them twice a day, and I think they charge $8 a run, or they do it by the month, or they do it. So you might be able to use just 6 or 8 smaller garbage cans in a little bin area and have them come twice a day, and that helps a local company, and it gets rid of your trash on a regular basis, if it's cost effective.
I just know Joe Green's had 12 garbage cans.
How often did they empty them, though? That's the key.
Never? I don't know.
If you have 6 behind a very small fence area and Wakefield Disposal does a contract with you to get rid of them on twice-a-day basis, then you might be able to alleviate the whole large dumpster. I also agree with maybe partnering with Dockside Restaurant and doing it that way.
To me, honestly, that would be ideal if that was a possibility, to partner with them and either expand the size of that or to have it dumped more often. But, you know, there's going to be over 300 seats in this building. So the amount of debris, trash that a 300-seat restaurant will produce is significant. So having these types of containers in the back, I just don't think is feasible.
So you're going to need 2 large dumpsters that will be emptied every day?
Realistically, in working with my designers on this, it could be one that would be emptied every day. 2 of them could be emptied every other day, but one of them would be sufficient for both, you know, for all these businesses that we're talking about.
So I guess the first thing we should do is find out how many times Dockside gets their barrel emptied. That's the first thing you should do, is find that out and come back to us with another idea.
Yep. And thank you. I hope that addresses the issue of the trash. So I will go and like I said, I do recognize this is not the ideal solution, but it's the best solution that we have so far. So I'll work with Dockside and see. It is town land, right? So does the town have some say in that? The dumpster. So
I would think we'd have some say in if they built something more, expanded something of town property, yeah.
they have it. It's enclosed. It's
Yes,
nice.
and it's, I think it's what we as a town have allowed them to put up there. We own that building and we own all the dock.
Right.
And so if that was going to be changed, and I think there may be coolers out there too. There's a bunch of stuff out there, which are our coolers because we own the building. So I don't know about the dumpster, but that would all have to come back through us. You know, I can understand your dilemma here, but you also have to realize that the beauty of down there is very significant to the people of this community, and seeing a dumpster or a shed, they're going to have an issue with. And so you bought a building, and that's the land you had. You know, and so you could get rid of some of your seats back here and put a dumpster back there, back where it's always been, and out of the view, and not lose any of the parking spaces. That's where I would like to see you put it, and put something around it. And my feeling is it's such a gorgeous place, and people go down there for the peace and the beauty and to sit. And so that's why I'm so concerned about what I see here.
I understand. I will counter and say, though, that the whole idea of why we purchased the building and are redeveloping it is to improve the look of the building and the look from the town docks. You know, last year there was trash cans there. There have been for years. There was an underutilized restaurant and used clothing store in the back. So we hope that this is an improvement to the town dock. There is, of course, a part that's, you know, there's a financial feasibility to it, which goes to the outdoor seating part. I think because of the pandemic, maybe we have realized the value that people put in outdoor seating. You know, there's a number of places in town that had the option to expand their outdoor seating, and the public realized how great it is to be able to sit outside. And Wolfeboro just really does not have that. There's only a few places in town that you can sit outside at all. And certainly our biggest asset is the water and the town docks and the view of the lake. And other than Garwood's, which fortunately they expanded their deck, there's no place in town that you can sit and look at the water while you're eating. So that's why we expanded the second and third floor levels so that people would have that. And we're adding that first floor deck. Now, I guess I could take that deck away and put a dumpster there, but that does not, you know, it's not just the beauty of the town docks, it's how people interact with it and what draws people. And certainly having 40 or 50 outdoor seats there that people can enjoy a meal and look at the water, I think there is a big benefit in that also. And that goes to the same thing with the 3 parking spaces. You know, we want to develop that restaurant in the front, and we want to gear it towards the tourists and people that come in onto the town docks, give them a great experience, give them a place to eat, and also for workforce people where they don't have to spend $15 to try to have lunch and they don't have time. My kids work in town all summer long and they don't even have time to eat lunch because there's no place to get it. And all summer long, I apologize if I'm
It's okay, we all do it, so go ahead. Go ahead, right
I
ahead.
heard so many people complaining there was no place to eat in town. People would stop me and say, where can I eat? And there is no place. It was just a huge problem. So I hope that this is helping to solve some issues with dining, where people can eat, but also the overall experience that people have when they come to town. When they come to town, and if they're staying at one of our places like the Wolfeboro Inn, the Lake Wentworth Inn, the Crescent Lake Inn, and they come into town to enjoy it, and they have no place to eat lunch, that's not a positive experience. So we're hoping to address some of that, and especially with the grab and go in the front, people come into the town docks and they just want to eat something, they want to go shopping, they don't want to spend an hour waiting to get into a restaurant and then an hour and a half to eat. So we're hoping to try to solve that, but the reality, of course, is this is a financial undertaking. It's a large capital investment to create 2 restaurants. And when you look at the financial feasibility, it's difficult without the ability for people to sit someplace. The goal is to have handheld food that people can get quickly, but they have to sit down someplace to eat it unless you want people walking down the street with food in their hand. That's not optimal either. And I understand it's town land, but I also feel it's the role of the town to look at what the assets that they have and what is someone bringing to the table. I'm not just asking, hey, I'd just like some land. I'm offering a large investment in this building, making the building look much nicer from the town docks, from the main street, and providing a service and an amenity to people that come to this town. And I'm asking the town to work with me on the gas, which I certainly appreciate, and work with me on the trash so we can fix the problem that's there, but also to consider giving up 3 parking spaces so we can have a successful restaurant, both financially and aesthetically, and give people a place to sit. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments to make?
I just want to, if I may mention one thing. I wanted to say, the building does look great, and especially from the back. And, even these plans, thank you. I mean, that's it was nice having these because it shows, stuff. And though we may not all agree on exactly how it should look, I had another thought too when we were talking about Dockside. If you do talk to Greg Rourke, they have a very short window over there too at Dockside. So, maybe during the part of the year, if you work out some kind of deal with them and you come back to the town for your trash, and maybe when they're not using it as much, you can, have more trash over there because they're a very short window and you're going to be year round, But the building looks amazing. You did a great job. It really ties in really good with the town docks now and everything that's being done down there. And it is a place where people come in. Now that we do have a lot more picnic benches than we ever have during COVID. I think we have 4 down there. And I think the plan is, in some senses, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the parking lot and the triangle that's going to be created down by the ramp, but I thought there was maybe potential for more seating as well. But that's all kind of fluid right now with the...
And I'd have no problem. If I go down to Seven Sons, you see their tables against but the town put benches where people can go sit down there. And I have no problem having town benches put places where somebody can grab and go. But even the person who didn't go to your shop, who brought it, could go. These would be for your restaurant, and it identifies them for them. I'm with you. We've put more picnic tables out, and I think if we design down here, we may want to design more seating, and your grab-and-go people would be welcome to sit there. I just am against allocating this just for you. I will agree with you, Luke. I think the building looks lovely. I think you've done a very nice job. What I'm having the trouble is taking public land and giving it to a private entity and not having it left open for everybody. And I believe maybe we can come to something with where we put our own benches that help you at that point. But I'm not willing to give up the land. And you look at it, our generation gives up this much, another generation gives up that way, and the land gets smaller and smaller. So that's just where I come from. And I think you have done a nice job here, and I'm glad you came in to talk to us.
Yeah, and
we
again,
as a board, having that opportunity to talk to you and to try to work some stuff out.
Yeah, and again, reach out and come to the parking lot committee and give your ideas.
I'm sorry, I did mean to let you know that I have, before I came up with this idea in the presentation, I did speak with all the abutters and the other stakeholders down there. I have talked to Todd O'Dowd, I talked to Adam Dow, and also the owner of the restaurant next to me. So I have been involved in that, but I have not formally been in that committee. I talked to David Ford extensively about this, and I'm also I talked to him about getting the power lines underground, that go to our building, right? The great big power lines and stuff. So I have been involved in that, just not officially.
Okay. And Luke had a good point, that the dockside dumpster is empty all winter long. So that could be something that if you guys could manage to just dump it more during the summer, then it would be available for you for the winter.
And we're supporting getting that power line down, and the issues around the power line, that's very simple. That's something, as an electric company in a town, we don't want things too close to buildings and fires and stuff, and that will be worked out. To me, the real issue is the seating and public land. So, anybody else? Thank you very much. One thing I would like to bring up, and Jim, I would like to get these maps out to the full board, but I'm really concerned that we are going on and we're designing a parking lot, and one of the things that came out when I read is this whole area back of Avery's, they're saying is our land and not their land, and we had this big deck drawn out, and we're starting to do a conceptual design. We just spent some money, and this we've been trying to get for a year. This just started, so I'd like to make a motion that nothing goes on further with the conceptual design until this Board of Selectmen gets the survey and we get to see what is our land. And I'll make that as a motion. Do I have a second? Does anybody want to have any further discussion? Jim, do you want to weigh in on my motion?
No, that's fine. I think you saw by the email, this actually came into Dave this past week, and he's working to meet with Duncan to try and get some more information and trying to get this tied up. Yes, it's been a long time coming, but I think, one, it was slow to get going because they didn't want to get started until the spring of the year, and then when they got going, there was a lot more research that was required than was originally thought. But yeah, that is not an issue.
And my feeling is if we stop it, we get the survey, we get it all down, we understand it, then the design will be on the line, us knowing what our boundaries are, and that's where we started. So I have a motion to hold it until that happens. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And I will give these back to Jim. I got them, I couldn't print them because they were, it came to me as an attachment, somebody else's email. So my printer wouldn't print them, and Amy's printer wouldn't print them. So I didn't get this until late this afternoon. That's the only reason the rest of you did not get it. But I will get these back to Amy, and I'll get them out to the rest of you.
Yeah, it appears they're in a format that we can't print from, so we'll work with Duncan on that.
Okay. All righty. The bolding of the warrant articles, I ended up spending time bolding them, and then there was a question to, I guess, Secretary of State that says we cannot bold on the ballot, which we have done for quite a number of years. So the bolding is on the presentation. If anybody has any issue with the bolding, let Jim know, or if they want something else bolded. It was just really my draft attempt at doing it, and once we can't get it on the ballot.
So the bolding will take place in the presentations. It will be bolded in the town report, and it will be bolded in the voter's guide, but it will not be bolded on the ballot. The Secretary of State's office was pretty clear based on RSA 669:23, ballot shall be uniform.
Okay. And so if you have something I missed, because I did it quickly, I did it just around Christmas time, send it to Jim, and he can add it to any presentation. Next item on the agenda is the town report. And they sent you pictures of the two that are going to go on. And did we decide which goes on the front, which goes on the back?
Yeah, I thought we had decided that this one was going on the front.
Front, that's what I thought so
And
too.
that the sunset one was going to go
On the back, okay.
Sunsets at the end.
Sunset.
Yep, that's what I thought so too. Brad, did we get the annual report in? Did you make the changes or do anything with that?
Yeah, I didn't do any changes with it at all, so.
Okay, so Amy should have this. All right, I'll follow up on that with Amy. All righty. Other business, does anybody have any other business? I have one. I have gotten in contact with the two people from the single track. I got a hold of the chamber, got a hold of the Conservation Commission, and here are the list of the names that have been submitted to me. Lynn Palmer for the chamber, Dan Coons for the Conservation Commission, single track wants Chris Dowd and Rudy Mayer, and I have a email from Jim Knupp. He would like to join the committee. He is a biker, but also he is on the Cotton Valley Trail Committee. And that's the trail that goes, Bridge Falls Path goes to Route 28, and the Cotton Valley Trail, I think, goes all the way over to Sandbergville. And so he had asked me whether he could be on. I said I would bring it to you tonight. Does anybody have any problem adding him to the committee? Okay, I will get back to him. I would like to see if we could schedule a meeting and get this thing going. Before we know it, spring will be here and people will be wanting bike trails. So we're going to have a set a date because the full board's going to be there. And I didn't know what people felt about trying to get one next week on the 26th and get this thing rolling. The other possibility is to go on to the 2nd of February, but no, we'd have a meeting on the 2nd. Either go the 1st or 3rd of that week.
February?
26th would be a day when we don't have another meeting, but we will be well meetinged out. Or any other day that somebody thinks would be good. The next week, you got the deliberative session. We aren't going to want to, it's going to be a late night unless we do it towards Friday. I just think we need to get...
26 works for me, so.
Dave, you okay with the 26th?
Yep.
Luke?
Yes.
Brian?
Okay.
Okay, I'll get a hold of everybody. Let's see if we can get our first meeting on the 26th. It'll be noticed as a work session as on the bike trails with the Bike Trail Committee.
6:30?
Yes, let's do it at 6:30. All right. Does anybody else have any other business? I have one more thing, and I would like to address the petition warrant article that is asking voters to change how the zoning board members are placed on the ZBA. As a board as a whole, we do not take a position on a petition warrant article, but this petition warrant article is asking the Board of Selectmen to take a role in choosing the ZBA members, and therefore, as a member of the board, I'd like to speak to it. I'm not in favor of the Board of Selectmen appointing members to the ZBA. I oppose this petition warrant article for the following reasons. First, in 2018, the voters changed the way the ZBA members were approved from the Board of Selectmen appointing it to elected officials by 68.9% approval rating. I supported that. I think it has been an improvement. I believe that the citizens of Wolfeboro should choose who will serve them on the Zoning Board of Adjustment, not the Selectmen. By electing the Zoning Board members, the ZBA members are accountable to the citizens and voters and not to the Board of Selectmen. It is the voters, that's the legislative body, that approves the town zoning ordinance, and therefore the voters should evaluate the performance of the Zoning Board of Adjustment members as to how their decisions have affected the zoning of the town. ZBA elections have had more than one candidate on a few occasions, similar to other town elected positions. I disagree that these positions have been hard to fill. At the last meeting that the ZBA had, they appointed a new alternate. As I look at the present ZBA members, I disagree with the statement that because these positions are elected, qualified people are not running. I believe that members of the present zoning board have been diligent in their evaluation of the criteria for the applicants and to meet the criteria for their variances and special exceptions. So, does anybody else have anything to say? All right, next item, committee reports. I'll start down this way with Brian.
All we had was, budget meetings.
Yes, we did have a few.
Yeah, and that's about all I've had. We had a EDC meeting that was canceled because of snow, and that was it. And the budget meetings have been great. I mean, very reasonable, and as far as I can tell, it looks like there's a consensus on almost all of the warrant articles this year.
Been a good year. Yeah. Luke?
So I haven't had any this past week. I have a meeting tomorrow. We have a police commission meeting tomorrow. And we have one other meeting tomorrow. I think it's with Tom Zotti, and it might be an EOC type thing. Yeah, so those will be my meetings for the week.
Okay, I've had 2 meetings with the Friends of Pop Whalen, and from what has come forward, you can tell what we've been working on, and that's raising money and the building. I joined Brian in a number of budget committee meetings. I went to the Chamber's Executive Board meeting. I attended a Wolfeboro Waters Committee meeting yesterday. We had a milfoil meeting, and Brian, you were with me on that milfoil meeting, and we have received a proposal for a grant from DES for half the cost of chemical or hand-pulling milfoil, and this year we're into hand-pulling or dash work, and that should be on the next agenda. We have to get that approved and out the door to DES. Dave?
I had one meeting, a ZBA meeting. That's all I've had.
Brad?
Yeah, I had we had a planning board meeting last night. It was a work session. Had a Friends of Libby Museum meeting last week, and we were going to have on Monday, we were going to have a committee meeting with Dave and I and some members of the Friends of Libby to work on the business plan and economic viability plan. That got postponed until next Monday due to some people who couldn't make the meeting, so we're going to have that this coming Monday. And we had a Wolfeboro Community TV meeting this morning, went over some things, getting our new year going, so that was it.
Good. Now we're on to Jim, Town Manager Report.
So the warrant is pretty much buttoned up. We're pretty much got the green light to go from New Hampshire DRA, which is a good sign. We have the default budget all ready to be signed. We have the proposed budget all ready to be signed. So the 2022 budget process is, for all intents and purposes, over, short of the deliberative session. Deliberative session is scheduled for the 8th at Kingswood Arts Center. And it was a long, arduous journey through the budget process as usual, but I think it paid off in the end. Everything went through with a couple of nay votes, but the general consensus was everything was voted in favor of by the budget committee. So that was great. Short of that, just getting ready for deliberative session at this time. And we're beginning to do some more work on the public safety building. I'm meeting with the fire crews tomorrow to start that process on. And that's about it.
Thank you. Questions from the press? No, nobody's there. Any public input? Hearing none, can I have a motion to go into non-public session?
So move.
Second?
Okay. Brad?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm yes. Luke?
Yes.
Brian? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.